Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm doing something quite new, and that is showcasing my most ambitious and complex Python program that I've done to this date. It's just Pac-Man, made with Pygame, with the help of many experts, that is. I'll be explaining how much of the important lines of code, how each element connects to one another, how it utilizes most modern aspects of gaming, and how to execute it. So to start off, obviously this is made with Pygame, and I have to import a few elements as well as using other files to grant access. Now first of all, the board. The board is essentially the level used where Pac-Man has the maze and pretty much navigates through, as well as where the ghosts are. And so I'm able to customize it based on the numbers that match up with whatever geometry this is. Now each of these numbers is a variable that's linked to each of these lines, or walls as you want to call them. And essentially, since each of these have a representation, I could be able to change them if I like. So if I, for example, decide to change the level for a more simplified or more complicated maze, then that is possible just by simply changing the numbers and testing it out. So that's a really nice feature. Other than that, most of the code utilizes most modern gaming aspects. So it's the third Python game I've ever made. Before this was Space Invaders, which has a few elements that I do want to bring over here. Utilizes animation, since Pac-Man will have to open and close his mouth, and that uses 4 frames of images that will be able to load every second or so. More advanced CPU, since they have an advanced class set, and a class is basically like a blueprint that's like for objects, such as the ghost in this example, to follow. So as you can see, much of these ghosts are given their own coordinates, positions, directions, if they're dead or if they're in a box. And as you can see, they can also be loaded up, or depending on how they appear, because as you guys know, the ghosts can appear in their natural color, in their flicker form, or just eyeballs. And here's where they check their collisions, as well as each ghost, what kind of identities they have, since I am able to customize how they move, which way they move, pretty much their behavior. They have their own behavior, I'll say. Although it was not easy. But before I get to that, I will just mostly show off just how extensive this program really is, because I've never programmed anything like this ever before. I code all the way down over 1,000 lines of code. It's at least 1,200. Yeah, but that's just me though. Like, it really depends. You can probably optimize it better if you're a much more experienced Python programmer. But essentially, this is as much code as you might need, around 1,000 or so, because of the ghost and player. As you can see, get targets. This is where they're going to be able to get the targets. And again, there's a lot of if-else conditions, as you notice. If you try to read, which I know I'm going a bit fast, but it's really extensive. I kind of want to try to summarize it and simplify as much as I can. Yeah, each of these functions, def, you define aspects of the game. So for example, draw board is essentially, well, bring this, and how we'll load them, pretty much. As you can see, there's a lot of math, which I did forget to mention. If I go all the way up here to the beginning, it uses more modern aspects of gaming, such as hitboxes, since Pac-Man has to have his ring, a black ring around him, which you may not be able to see unless I change its color, but that's his hitbox. Positions, classes, flexible joystick controls, which I'll get into in a minute. Algorithms for ghost movement, which I explained. They have their own algorithm and behavior, and real-time targets, as well as proper game over and victory box UI. There's also geometry, which, as I explained over here with the draw board, because when I try to draw the mazes or the lines, they utilize something called the unit circle, which you might have learned from geometry or whatever math class. It's part of trigonometry, but whatever the case is, essentially it's like the 360-degree circle, except that's just converted into radians. I used a math module to import and utilize this circle to draw the mazes, and it's mostly for the arcs, I'll say. Like, for example, 4, 5, 6, 7, well, or 8. Usually, they're turning. 7 is probably just a 9 degrees angle, an angle 9 degrees. So yeah, that's really only math, but there's obviously going to be like algebra kind of math around here. I find other variables much more integral to really implement. Around here, as you can see, I can put the title, the icon, the theme music. I tried to add the Waka Waka, which I will play the game in a sec and demonstrate how it works. But essentially, as you can see, this code really checks everything. From how the ghosts move, from when they should move, from how Pac-Man should move, the time, everything. And there's actually a part where I would like to show off. I'm just not sure if it's around here. But anyways, here's the controls. And as you can see, event.type equals Pygame.down key, or key down. Basically, if you press on it, and then down here, if key event.key is equal to Pygame.key right, and these are the arrows that follows, and obviously the directions have their own variables. And I'm gonna see, you'll see a lot of 0s to 3s or 4s. They can be used over and over again since they're actually local variables, so they're dedicated to their own functions. Depending on the variable goes, how it will turn. Say 0 is right, Pac-Man will probably just head on his own direction. If it's left, it'll probably turn 180 degrees, and so on. So direction.command is more complex since it gives a lot more fluency in the movement, since Pac-Man is a fast-paced game. So the arrows does give a joystick type of feel, so whenever the closest chance you can turn, it will actually work that way. So, moment of truth, it's time to demonstrate the game. So once I hit click, you guys will notice there is music. However, there is no sound effects into this game yet because I haven't really had the time to try and add them. However, I'm planning to add future sound effects if I ever have the time to do so, since I have actually done so in my previous game for Space Invaders. And these sound effects may include him munching, eating ghosts, score points, etc. Now, if I finish this game, there will be a UI, or it really doesn't matter whether I lose or win. I'll cut to the chase. There you go. Here's the little box. Victory, spacebar to the start. Or whatever. So, yeah, that's the game, Pac-Man. Now, I am able to change it or modify it since I am the developer after all. For example, I can change the color of the maze or walls to red. I can modify parts of the wall to 9s. For whatever reason, and I suppose add extra music. Heck, just for fun, I'll put 2 FPS as max. And this is usually the speed, so not really much of RAM, but regardless of how powerful your computer is, if the max is 2, then that's what I'm gonna set in. Now as for the text, it's really laggy. And I'm sure you guys can hear that annoying waka waka sound if I'm correct. So that's the thing, I have to add that. I have to make that as a sound effect for every ball in, pretty much. And yeah, this is horrendously slow, but you guys can see the walls have changed here as I change the number. I don't know what the other number is, but yeah, pretty much you can change the flicker, the images as we go, so I can put the person who you hate the most as a ghost, or I can put your face as Pac-Man, or even change the circle, which is around here, it's just colored black. It's just colored black. But generally speaking, I can modify the game because obviously this is a developer's kit. So now, of course, this was no easy feat at all. This project took me over a month to complete. I would still like to add some finishing touches to it, but generally at least I'm glad that it works because I even have to make another copy of the same game and the same program just so I can see where I have to debug, where I have to make changes and stuff like that, because one of the biggest issues was mostly getting the ghosts out of the box. For some reason I struggled to get that through, and I realized it was the issue of the classes, like I said, the blueprints or the templates for the objects. In addition, the ghost movement was also an issue, as there will come a lot of errors where there was no conditions if the ghost moved left, for example. I think also the controls itself, I couldn't easily get like the joystick controls or joystick feel that makes the game fluid. So yeah, there's been a lot of issues, and fortunately for every function or whatever line of code that I've added in, I've always had these comments so it can at least help me elaborate what they mean, what they do, and stuff like that, because obviously if this took me a month, I'm not going to remember every single thing. And I'm sure most of you guys will not understand anything unless you guys actually know the guy who actually helped me on this, or Python. But the people who helped me were at least a few Python experts. The biggest one being Lee Mastertech. Now this guy actually made the game itself. This was pretty much his idea, and obviously I didn't make Pac-Man. That was just a Japanese creator from Namco, I think. But I decided to do it from scratch and pretty much take his advice. I didn't just copy and paste whatever he did. I decided to add my own stuff, my own elements, and use his help and use this video to at least help me use it as a guide, you know, as instructions to help me build this game, because obviously I'm not gonna have enough experience or knowledge to really make this. In addition, for all the issues that I ran into, I went to the Python community on Discord and I reported many issues. I tried to get people to help me out on, hey, where do you think this bug may come in? And I mean, they couldn't just like directly just help me code the game itself, but they have to advise me on what I should do, where I should look into, and that's how I eventually realized that, hey, it's the move, Clyde move, Pinky and Inky, stuff like that, you know, the moving class that's causing the issue with the ghost movement and stuff like that. So yeah, I had a lot of sources to help me out, and I'm glad that I got this working. That's what really mattered at the end. Just for a comparison, here is my last game project, which was Space Invaders. Yeah, that's it. That's all the line of codes I know, and it was a lot easier, I'll say. And again, this game has sound effects, which I will be implementing soon, hopefully. So yeah. Here it is. Their CPU, their sound effects. All Pac-Man did was pretty much enhance them since the ghosts were really a huge hassle and were pretty obnoxious to get going through. These guys, I mean, all they do is just go down. That's it. So finally, what about sharing the game? Is it possible for me to at least set it to upload this and let you guys play it? So technically it is, by simply uploading the files to a cloud service like Google Drive. But the issue isn't getting the files, rather setting them up and running the game itself. Because it isn't like a traditional .exe file where if you double click it, the program will load. Because you will need additional software and applications to get this going, such as Python or whatever coding language, and the environment for it as well. And it isn't just the applications, but also all these modules that you have to install, and so it's a very integral and complicated process to even get this game going through. And the reason why it is difficult is in part because it is a developer setup in such perspective or environment for running a program. Since you're in control of the code, you're the one building the infrastructure and the pieces, as well as adding the modifications you would like to implement. Because again, this is pretty much how programmers are, you know, they make these stuff in this environment and they pretty much code, they work into the hard disk, and if they publish it, that's a different thing. I think that's front-end stack, but I don't know. Something along those terms, but all I can say is that this is a developer setup, so it's not the easiest thing. It's not really meant for like everyday consumers. But I figure it was fun sharing anyway, since this is something that I really kind of show off to anyone, especially for this channel. Well, that concludes the video. If you guys would like to see more experimental videos or projects that I do off camera, I'll gladly begin to incorporate them into the channel. And feel free to share these videos as well, because it kind of helps me a lot to really get into what I know. Anyways, thanks for watching.